Hi, this is Joe Blarone, and today I'm going to be going over a typical sacrifice in the Sicilian Defence, notably Rook takes c3. So the way I thought I'd do this is I would look at a few different games showcasing the basics, maybe of the sacrifice, and then conclude with maybe a tougher example where there might be more than one type of tactic involved. The overlying theme is rook takes on the c3 square, which is normally a knight will be positioned there by white. So rook takes c3, and you'll see that black continues the attack on the queen side. Queen will target the a2 or a3 square. White squared bishop will cut across, and you'll see the attack is pretty strong. Notably, when I say Sicilian defense, I say Sicilian defense because I'm not saying it's specifically linked to the dragon or the Najdorf or the Schwenningen variation. It might be any one of those. I do love playing the dragon, so I will have a couple of dragon examples in there, but I'm just saying that these are Sicilian defense sacrifices, so it doesn't necessarily have to be one of them. Okay, so this is a very common sacrifice. I'll get straight into it, and I'll show you this game I played in the Leo Wilkinson Memorial against an opponent who was some 600 points lower rated than me, but I was getting a bit excited because I thought he knew the Yugoslav attack, and we would have a very tactical heavy opening to deal with. But he made a couple of mistakes and the game concluded pretty quickly. So I'll dive straight into it. e4, c5, knight f3. This is just a typical setup for going into a dragon. Bishop to e3. Normally it's okay. Normally they play knight to c3 instead, but bishop to e3 is still fine. Bishop g7. Now bishop e2. I thought, okay, this won't be a Yugoslav, this looks like he's going to a classical variation. So I decided, I'm not sure how I'm going to play against this, so I continued knight. And he played f3, so f3 is not something you do in a classical variation. Instead, it usually comes out to f4, and the move order is a little bit odd, so I thought, okay, I don't think he's in balk at the moment. So I continued knight to c6, because if your opponent starts doing funny stuff, the best thing I find you should do is maybe continue on with your original plan, unless there's anything drastic that's going to change it, unless they do something and what you were continuing to do originally will blow up in your face. By all means, just continue what you were doing. So I played just knight c6, castles, queen d2, knight takes, bishop takes. So this is a Yugoslav attack. This is what's called a Topolov variation, very popular by Veselin Topolov, very high rated Bulgarian player. Knight takes on d4, bishop takes, and the whole point is we can now slide this rook over eventually to this open c file and attack and commence our attack on the queen side. Bishop comes out to e6. Normally not a great move, hems in that bishop, but since we've got it on that diagonal there, guys, it's going to be fine. Queenside castle, queen out to a5, sorry I skipped a move there, and king slides across to b1 to help bolster this pawn. But the whole point about this sacrifice is the only real defender of this square here is this knight. You don't want to have just your king just defending one square, because if your piece that you're taking that pawn with is protected by say this bishop here, then you're putting yourself in a dangerous position. So rook slides over. It could have been either one. I decided to go with the kingside rook, maybe put this rook on the b file and push this pawn, but I decided let's just get this rook over. The whole idea is to sacrifice, and he makes a really bad mistake, f4. You think it doesn't look like a suicidal move, but the whole thing is with the dragon, if you waste tempo doing this pawn's taken 2 moves to go from f2 to f4. Not a great idea by white, because now black, it's almost like having a move up your sleeve. This pawn's taken 2 moves to move to that one square where you could have done it in one. Just inefficient. So rook takes, and by this stage I knew I was looking good, because my opponent, as soon as he saw rook takes, he just shook his head and he wasn't sure what was going to happen. Game continued, queen takes. Right choice. I don't think taking with either the bishop or the pawn would probably be very sound. In fact, if you take with any, you lead to mate. Or should I show you guys? Yeah, why not? Okay, so Komodo, sometimes if you don't do infinite analysis on Komodo, it thinks you're playing a game, and Komodo reads it's going to be mate and 1, king slides over to c1 and queen mates, so we're obviously going to take with the queen. Still take that pawn though, king slides across to c1. Now, I made a bit of a mistake, okay? I played knight c4, taking this pawn, in which my opponent continued queen a3. I took his queen, pawn takes queen, bishop targets his pawn, game continues, rook protects his pawn. Pawn a6, just, I don't know why I played pawn a6 actually, that's a bit of an odd move, but my opponent advances pawn to g4. Now, I was having a bit of fun here. I did end up playing rook c8 and just continuing with a solid line of attack, but I was thinking I could have made it really difficult and interesting. This probably would have actually been losing. If my opponent instead played g5, I would have decided, you know what, let's take that pawn. And so now I've got 7 pawns against 3. I am down a whole rook here, but 7 pawns against 3, I think I might have been able to come out okay. It would have been very interesting. I'm not sure how this would have played out, but I decided not to go that route. My opponent made a serious blunder. So game just continued. Knight, bishop retreats because I'm targeting him there, and would have just won a bishop, and winning move. Forking the king and the bishop, that pawn is pinned, so I claim a free bishop, GG, and he resigned. So, really quick game for you guys, but I just wanted to highlight that rook sacrifice early on. I think, was it move 15, or no, it was way earlier than that. It was move 13. So we had, after I exchanged there, removing this knight from d4. So I had knight takes, bishop e6. You can see we're all started headed towards that side. Queenside castle, queen goes to a5, king b1. And what's the continuation? Rook takes, queen takes, and you can see we can all charge here in this area. Now, what I was saying is, even though I won that game, I had a nicer way to continue. What I should have done instead, some of you guys might have spotted it by now if you know the dragon well enough. Queen a1 check, king d2. Now, I don't take that rook, instead I take with a knight. King moves back to e1. Now, from here, I simply go knight takes, and the point is, if rook takes on a3, I can grab that bishop, and if pawn decides to take, I'm going to get that rook back, and all of a sudden I am up an entire minor piece. Too easy. So instead, my opponent probably wouldn't do that. They'd probably want to hang on to their rook there, so they might instead move this rook somewhere else. But I'm going to have a comfy game. I've got a much better endgame because of all those pawns, and the 2 minor pieces should be able to beat up that other rook, so it should be an easy win. Instead, made a bit of a mistake. So, but that's why you look back on games, to see what you did right, correct what you did wrong, and go from there. So that's one game. That's just a game of mine. I'm now going to look at 2 other games. I will, because, okay, sorry guys, I'm a bit biased towards the dragon because it is a very fun opening to play, so I will very quickly go through another dragon game. Let's have a look. So this game is a Yugoslav attack. Okay, this is Topolov variation once again. Now, I just skipped ahead toward, I don't want to go through the openings because this is about the tactical idea, okay? The tactical idea of this rook takes on c3. White's just planning their kingside pawn storm. Now, rook takes, queen takes, once again queen takes on a2, it's a common combination there. Now, here we have a surprise, okay? There's another thing black needs to do here, because clearly we can't take that pawn on e4, can we? Because it's defended by f3. So black has to do something extra here. Who can spot how are we going to distract that f3 pawn from guarding that e4 square? Can anyone spot it? Okay. It is bishop takes on g4. So the point is, if pawn takes, this is disastrous because we have... Okay, so point is, if we have that, queen check, king rolls up here, knight comes down, check. Okay, if king goes to e1, we have a similar kind of king to e1. We're going to have queen takes check. Ooh, actually that doesn't win at all, does it? Let's go back a bit. Okay, so pawn takes, sorry, made a bit of a mistake there. Queen a1 check, king d2, knight takes check. Now, if king goes e1, we do have knight takes c3. Okay, sorry, my mistake. Similar kind of situation, rook takes the queen, bishop takes, and then once again that it's like that game from before. Okay, so winning position because of pawn takes, we get to fork the rook and the king, and if not, we should just be able to retreat that knight back, and we should be able to escape with that winning game. The only difference is I don't have the minor, it's not a free minor piece, instead it's the exchange, but with those extra pawns, you should be able to win that game from there. Okay, and instead, if they do something a bit different, let's say king e3. If we have king e3, we have... So if king e3, if they play king e3, then we've got... king e3, sorry guys. Sorry, my mistake. Then we have queen takes on d1, king takes e4, queen check, king down, and we make this bishop useless by playing, can anyone spot the next move? e5, bishop takes a7, and then e4. This is basically going to wrap things up because of that queen check is going to be really, really hard for black to defend. And also the queen is on pre, so that's a possible continuation there. Instead though, we're going to go back to here. We had bishop takes g4. Instead of pawn takes, we had bishop g2. So bishop d2, g2, enforcing that pawn there, but here black just launches into an assault once again. Have a look at their pieces. All the pieces come flying into the attack. Where's black going to go to continue this attack? What's the one piece black is not using in their attack at the moment? It's this rook on f8. So the rook on f8 is going to slide across to c8, attacking this queen. If the queen now, we have to see, can't run across to a3 and try to trade off, because if queen a3, we have bishop check, and you have to give up that rook. And so once the rook goes to d2, black will trade off queens, grab that rook, and should be having a winning game from there on in. Okay, so can't do that. Instead, queen's going to go to d3, where we have bishop e6 threatening bishop to b3. Okay. White then decides, okay, I don't want that pawn to be pinned, so I'm going to push that pawn and try to stop that rook from coming down. There's nothing worse in chess when you play something to prevent someone from doing it. And they do it anyway. Bishop to b3, attacking that rook. So the rook's got to go somewhere. We'll run across to e1, where we have a bishop check on h6. Now, even that bishop, it didn't seem like it was doing anything because it was blocked up by this knight, this bishop, and these pawns down here. It just jumps out to h6, and all of a sudden it's got that massive diagonal to work with against that king. So once we're targeting that king, we go, the bishop has to come back and retreat, defend that diagonal. And once we defend that diagonal, it's just a case of continuing the attack. Queen, check. Now, if this king moves anywhere else, it will get mated. If the king goes to d2, it will get mated. The king can't go anywhere else, so we need to retreat that queen. And who can spot the finishing touch? Finishing touch is rook takes on c3. Check, and that's where white resigned here, because it's force mate if the pawn takes the rook. Pawn takes rook, queen takes, and it's force mate. Queen has to block, and it's going to be checkmate. Next move, if not, king d2. Now, the wrong move is to check and take with a bishop, because then king grabs the rook. But instead, the right way to go is just simply queen taking, rook will take on b1. Sorry guys, rook will take on b1. And rook takes that bishop. You're going to have a discovered check on that king. That king really has nowhere to go, so this is going to be over very quickly, but white resigned before that point. So, another nice little example here. We saw something extra. We saw a bishop sacrifice as well as that rook sacrifice. So queen targets that king, and notice how queen's chased the king away onto this black square, and this dragon bishop can now attack this king. This can happen a bit in the dragon. This bishop becomes very powerful. Doesn't have to be from the long diagonal. Might be from the h6 c1 diagonals. Something to keep in mind. So the next example I want to have a look at is not a dragon. The next example I want to have a look at is actually from a Najdorf. I'll just quickly open this for you now. Najdorf. Okay, this is from two very strong players. One former world champion, Boris Spassky, who's playing the white pieces, was hang on, how do you pronounce this one? Lev Polygaevsky. Okay, I might just call him Lev. I'm not going to use that last name, but Polygaevsky was an interesting guy because he's got a whole Najdorf variation dedicated to him. Okay, it's very tactical heavy, extremely tricky to play for both sides, and it's interesting because computers today aren't still 100% sure who's better off in this variation. It's a big double-edged sword. It's difficult to play. Okay, so I'll start this game out. I'll play out a few moves. It's just interesting to see how this opening comes about. Bishop comes. This is the Najdorf, and this is probably the most aggressive try for white against the Najdorf, the bishop g5 variation. Now, there are lots of different ways to play this. Black responds with e6. White f4, this is all fine. Now, instead of playing something sensible, like say bishop to...
Great, I get to play white.
Say bishop to e7. Instead, Polygaevsky does something a bit different. That would be mainline. Instead, Polygaevsky does b5. Now, you might think, well, isn't that going to lose a piece, Joe Blaroon, after e5, pawn takes? No, because there's one other move that black can play here. Queen c7. Queen c7 leading to taking on that pawn, delivering, say, a check, and grabbing that bishop. It is pawn takes knight. Well, sorry, we're not going to take that pawn, but we'll get that check, and we'll get to grab that bishop. So instead, this is just something on the side, because I know this variation up to at least 20 moves at the moment, which is it's all very forced, otherwise either side it's just catastrophic. So instead, white will simply play queen here, and black has to retreat that knight. There's no real other move here for black, but this is getting off topic, because remember, we want to look at that sacrifice. So instead, b5, and Spassky doesn't push that pawn, instead plays bishop to d3. So it doesn't go into mainline Polygaevsky, plays bishop to d3, and here white goes knight b d7. Now, knight b d7 is just reinforces that knight there, and also hopes to bring this knight into this key c5 square and continue the attack on white's queen side. Now Spassky continues to attack with f5, and instead of taking that pawn, which would be bad, opening the e-file against both kings, black decides to go e5, chasing away that knight. When the knight retreats, goes forward, gaining tempo on the queen with c6. Queen really has no other great place besides queen to b6. Knight falls back. Bishop to b7. This is a common thing in a knight off. Bishop's going to have a very strong diagonal going towards the king side. Queen comes to e2, reinforcing that pawn. And now black just develops one of their last pieces, bishop to e7. It's a pretty bad bishop, it's hemmed in by a lot of pieces. It will be protecting that knight though, but it's more of just a move, so black is going to be able to castle and connect their rooks. Queenside castle, and now we see that key c8 rook here, and this is where it starts to get a little bit more interesting. White goes, okay, I'm going to take your knight on f6. Black responds, taking back. Kingside attack gets continued with g4. Queen a5, targeting that knight. You've got to defend it, which unfortunately makes a weakness, because you see here this pawn on a3. It's actually not defended that well. It's defended by this pawn here, but you'll notice that the queen's targeting this pawn. There is one other piece that is indirectly targeting that pawn now. Where is it? It's actually bishop e7. You can see that bishop e7 is targeting that pawn on a3 indirectly. Once that knight moves and that pawn is out of the way, both pieces are going to be able to cut that square. And even more importantly, what piece is on that connected to those diagonals? King on c1. So you can see the idea that Polygaevsky is going to have with this upcoming sacrifice. So we have, after a3, straight away, rook takes, because there's no other response. White has to respond, and from here b takes instead of queen takes. That wouldn't be the way to go. Queen takes would not be, I don't think, would be the best way to go. They decide, let's develop that bishop straight away. We've already sacrificed, we need to keep the initiative, we need to keep moving forward, get our pieces out and attacking. This queen's not going to be enough on her own, so black decides, I'm going to bring my other pieces forward. Pawn takes, and here we have, instead of bishop takes knight, or queen takes check, bit of a quiet move, but it's actually not that bad, castles, because once this rook swings over, we're going to have another piece bearing down on this file, and it's starting to look, I'm not going to say scary, but it could be a little bit like, well, for me, if I was playing against this as white, I would be a little bit concerned. Well, okay, he's Boris Spassky, he's a world champion, but it's the fact that if I was white and playing against this, I would be concerned, not just because of my highly rated opponent, but because this attack is looking, it's going to be quite difficult to stop. So we have Queen e5, targeting this, try to get rid of this dangerous bishop here. Simply though, black takes, delivers a check. King b1, bishop will take on b4, pawn takes. Now, and you think, okay, there might just be a check here, but I don't think check would be the best way to go, because if we play 21 knight takes check, 21 queen takes pawn check, queen could just run back to b2, hopefully swap off, and the endgame might actually be favourable for white here. Instead, knight takes. Notice there's no real serious threat here, so white's kind of trying to stem out the attack from black. Queen comes back to b2, and here it's a bit boring really. Both players deciding to draw, because after knight check we have king c1, knight a2, king b1, knight c2, king c1. They'll just go back and forth forever, because once the king leaves, queen takes queen, game over for white. So both players are happy with a draw, but you saw how potent that sacrifice is. That was with accurate play from the world champion, ended up being a draw. If you're using this at club level, I'd be surprised if they played as well as Spassky did. I didn't quite go into further, because I am looking at from black side with the sacrifice defense. There are lots of other sacrifices you can play in the Sicilian as well. I might try one of those, show a video of those later on. But this is the main idea. Rook takes on c3, get this knight onto this key e4 square, target that square somehow onto c3, attack with the queen, a5, great place for the queen to come down, maybe even bring that other rook across, target that square again, have that bishop, the white squared bishop targeting a2, so you see a lot of pieces get thrown into the mix. But this is the kind of tactic I really enjoy, that have multiple stages. I hope you enjoyed this video.